Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our late night conversation. And we are going to talk about this man who is called William Samoei Ruto, who is the President of the Republic of Kenya. This man is a true Pan-Africanism. He believes in one state in Africa. He believes that in Africa, we should have borderless. That means we should move from one country to the other without any restriction because, after all, we are brothers and sisters. Our origin is the same. And he believes that if Africa opens its borders so that we can be borderless, every country opens its border to another country so that in Africa, we can be like a one big state. So William Samoei Ruto is urging various African leaders that it is time for Africa to consider opening up all the boundaries which were made by the colonial masters to enslave us, so that it can be easy for them to govern us. It was to be easy for them to make us to be weak, because the colonial masters believed that if we were subdivided, if we were segregated, then our unity couldn't have helped us. So William Samoei Ruto is talking that it is time to awaken the spirit that Africa should be one nation, that Africa, we should have a free trade area. We should trade freely without having any visa from one country to the other. Or we should consider having only one visa so that it can be very easy for an individual to move from one state to the other state so that we can trade, so that we can create wealth for our generation. So William Samoei Ruto is coming up in a very clear way, and he is urging other African leaders that it is a time we have to dream. It is a time we have to make the dreams of our forefathers who said that Africa must unite, that Africa must be one nation, so that we can use our resources well. Because remember what's happening currently in Africa. It is because we actually took the visas which were introduced to us. We made ourselves not to see each other as brothers and sisters, so that we cannot trade among us. And because of that, we are weak. We are a poverty-stricken continent. But yet, we have a lot of minerals. We have a lot of untapped resources, which actually we should use for our benefit. For example, we have enormous resources for renewable energy, and yet we are not tapping to that resources. And that's why we don't have enough power to use to drive our industries. So William Samoei Ruto, when he was in Mozambique, he told the people of Mozambique that it is time for us to open our borders. It is time to think how we can make Africa to be borderless so that our movement can be freely within the continent. It is time to think of having one currency. It is time to use our local currencies to trade among us. We should not depend on the dollar, because if we overdepend on the dollar, it means that we are creating wealth to the Western nations or to the United States of America, while we are actually suffering in great poverty. William Samoei Ruto also told the citizens of Mozambique that we should come together as Africa and actually be on that table of the world where we have the strength to tell World Bank, to tell IMF that we are not here just like feasters, but we are here as equals. So William Samoei Ruto has been championing for the African states to unite, to open their borders so that we can trade freely. So this man is a brilliant man, and we should have African leaders thinking like President William Samoei Ruto. Please listen to what President William Samoei Ruto had to say when he was in Mozambique.
We still find challenges of barriers and roadblocks and bureaucracy around movement of goods and services in our continent. I know with your commitment, the commitment of the people of this great nation, we will move towards a visa-free region and a visa-free continent. Kenya already made the decision 5 years ago that any African who wants to visit Kenya can acquire a visa at the airport in Nairobi. We are currently having a national conversation whether any African needs a visa at all, forget one at the airport. And I think by the end of this year, we will have made a decision, because we share history, we share culture, we share destiny, and it is in our place to begin to imagine a continent of brothers and sisters that does not have the limitations of barriers and boundaries and bureaucracy that impedes movement of people or goods or services. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on this matter, the visa regime was introduced to us by our friends, largely from the West. Today, they have largely moved away from visa restrictions in their jurisdictions. For example, the EU of 27 countries have a single visa for 27 countries and 500 million people. And yet, we have been left stuck with visas, which they introduced and abandoned, and we are now victims and hostages of visas from one country to another. I think we need to do the right thing Because if those who introduced the visa find no meaning for it anymore, why should we? Your Excellency, I think this is a conversation that you and me and our other brothers in the continent need to have, so that we can unleash the full potential of the people of our continent, the people of our countries, to do the best to grow the opportunities that we have in our countries.